It's 3:12 in the morning, and the lights on the ridge went out 10 minutes ago. That makes 5 towns tonight. I'm looking at the grid map here, what's left of it, and it's almost comical. Little red pins marking places that still have power. Last week, the whole state glowed like a Christmas tree. Now it's just patches, faded dots against a sea of black. If you're still listening out there, this is Michael Trent, broadcasting on 108.7 FM The Beacon, and if you can hear me, you're already luckier than most. It's day 29 of the shutdown, 4 weeks of silence from Washington. No paychecks, no mail, no news that isn't rumor. What started as another political standoff has turned into something else entirely. Something bigger, something colder. The air tonight is heavy, still, but charged. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like the world's holding its breath. I don't know how many of you have noticed, but the signals are dying. Slowly, quietly, like the country's exhaling its last breath. You tune across the dial and it's static, then silence, then a voice begging for power or medicine or time. No one's answering anymore. It started small, didn't it? Just another headline. Government shuts down over budget dispute. People laughed it off. Stock markets dipped for a day, then climbed back. Everyone said it'd be over in a week. They always are. But by the second week, something felt wrong. Airports slowed down, then stopped updating flights. The IRS lines went dead. Food inspection offices shut their doors. Nothing official came out of D.C. except recycled press statements that sounded more like echoes than orders, and then the power grids began to fail. At first, it was routine maintenance. That's what they called it. But you don't maintain every substation east of the Mississippi on the same night. The National Weather Service stopped updating radar feeds. NOAA satellites flickered out one by one. There was no storm, they said. Then people started reporting auroras over Virginia. Auroras in Virginia. No one ever explained that either. The first real panic hit around day 16. That's when federal employees stopped getting deposits, permanent this time. People lined up outside banks that couldn't open because FDIC staff had been furloughed. You could feel the fear spreading like static in the air. By day 20, major supermarket chains reported supply interruptions. The polite way to say the trucks stopped coming. I talked to a man in Allentown that day, truck driver named Carl. He'd been hauling USDA-inspected meat for over 20 years. Said his company got a hold order from Washington, but nobody could tell him who signed it. The order came through a blank header, no seal, no office name. Just Seasol distribution pending reauthorization. He told me he parked his rig on the turnpike shoulder and waited 3 days before walking home. Left the keys in it. There's this silence now that doesn't feel natural. No police scanners, no press conferences, no briefings. Even local mayors are shutting their doors, saying they've received guidance not to comment publicly. Guidance from who? Nobody seems to know. I keep hearing whispers, calls from insiders who claim there's more going on than a shutdown, that parts of the Defense Department have been operating off-record since day 10, that an encrypted line is still open between FEMA and something they call the Continuity Authority. But those are just voices through static, right? Or maybe they're all that's left. If you're still up, send word. I don't care if it's Morse, ham, carrier pigeon. Just let me know you're still out there. The last message I got was from a woman in Roanoke 2 nights ago. She said her husband works at a federal storage facility outside Blacksburg. Something classified, she hinted. On the night of day 24, they were told to burn their identification cards and wait for further instructions. She hasn't heard from him since. I tried calling the Roanoke frequency again tonight, but all I got was this faint repeating tone. Same pattern, every 30 seconds. Like someone left the mic open and walked away. The thing about a government shutdown is that it's supposed to be temporary. That's the word they always use, temporary. But what if this isn't just about politics anymore? What if something's been happening behind the scenes, and the shutdown was just the easiest way to turn off the lights without panic? That's what scares me. Not the darkness. The idea that the lights were turned off on purpose. I've been talking to people, scientists, line techs, people who actually understand how fragile this system is. One guy, name withheld for his safety, said he worked in energy grid management up in New York. He told me something I can't stop thinking about. The grid doesn't fail piece by piece, Mike. It fails like a net snapping. One hole, and the weight tears the rest apart. He said certain nodes, government-maintained ones, went dark first. The civilian ones followed automatically, as if they were told to. I asked him who would tell a power grid to shut itself down. He hung up. It's funny how fast order collapses once money stops flowing. Gas stations started accepting cash only, then stopped entirely when deliveries dried up. Hospitals began rationing medicine, citing logistical delays. Even state troopers in some counties have stopped patrols, waiting for clear directives. You can drive down I-81 for miles and not see a single cruiser. Just empty rest stops, gas pumps with duct tape over the card slots, and motel parking lots filled with people sleeping in their cars. The idea of America we grew up with, this big humming machine that always runs, it's been coasting on inertia. And now the engine's off. You can feel it slowing. Earlier tonight, a man called in from somewhere near Columbus, Ohio. Said his name was Jared, voice trembling. He said his mother's Social Security deposit never came, and the local branch office was abandoned. The doors locked, the blinds drawn, no notices, no guards, nothing. Then he said the weird part. He swore he saw trucks, unmarked white box trucks, pulling in and out of the federal building parking lot at night. No plates, no logos, always around 3 a.m. He asked if I thought they were repossessing equipment or moving something out. I told him the truth. I don't know anymore. If you're listening and you've still got power, record this broadcast. Copy it. Pass it. Because the way things are going, I don't think there'll be many of us left on the air by morning. I keep a backup generator here. It's loud, but reliable. Burns through fuel like water, though, and I'm down to my last can. So if this signal starts to fade, don't panic. I'll come back as long as I can. This frequency, 108.7 FM, used to belong to a country station. I took it over when they stopped transmitting on day 23. I figured someone should keep talking. Because silence, that's when people start disappearing. I'll read a few messages that came in tonight before the line dies again. To whoever's still out there near Pittsburgh, stay off Route 22 past the tunnel. State trucks blocking both lanes. No one in them. Engines still running. No name signed. We're holed up in a church basement in Charleston. 15 of us. 2 babies. No word from anyone official. Just need to know if FEMA's still operating. I wish I knew, Annette. I really do. Do you think this is martial law under another name? Heard that National Guard units in Tennessee were told to stand down, but then got new orders from an independent command. What's that mean? If you're asking me, I think the chain of command broke weeks ago. The strange thing is, no one's seen a single member of Congress, since day 10. Not on camera, not live. Just pre-recorded clips looped on network reruns. Even the president's last address, if it was live, sounded like it was stitched together from older statements. The pauses were wrong, the lighting too perfect. I'm not the only one who noticed. A tech from NBC emailed me before the servers went down. Said the file metadata on that live address showed a creation date 6 days before it aired. He didn't sign his name, just wrote, "They're staging the image of a government that isn't there anymore." People keep asking how long this can last. That's the wrong question. The real one is, what's left when it's over? Because you can't just flip the switch and bring a country back online. Systems rot when they sit idle. Databases desync. Satellites drift off course. Food spoils. And people lose trust. When trust's gone, no paycheck or executive order can fix that. I'm going to check the outer band frequencies after this. Some ham operators near Syracuse said they picked up bursts, encrypted ones, on old FEMA channels. Every 18 minutes, on the dot. Maybe it's automated, maybe not. If you're tuned in and have the right gear, try listening on 163.6125 megahertz. Tell me what you hear. I'll stay on this channel as long as the power holds. Someone once said, governments don't collapse overnight. They starve in daylight. I think we're watching the last meal. Static crackles faintly. The voice cuts, returns. Uneven, breath-worn, but steady. You're listening to what's left of the beacon. This is Michael Trent, and tonight, the lights went out over Harrisburg. It's 3:28 a.m. now, and the ridge lights haven't come back. The transformer by the old lumberyard coughed once and then fell quiet, and the houses below me look like black teeth on a broken jaw. If you're driving east on 322 toward Duncannon, the bridge is there, but the marker lights are out. Keep to the center lane and trust your headlights. If you've got nothing but a phone light, stop. Don't try to cross. I watched a sedan crawl along the rail 10 minutes ago and lose the line. Whoever you were, if you can still hear this, steer back to the middle of the span, not the shoulder. There's a gap in the metal plates about 20 feet from the west end that can swallow a tire. Before I get to messages, quick note for anyone with a scanner. I'm hearing short-coded bursts on 163.6125 at exactly 18-minute intervals, like we clocked last hour. The pattern is 4 pulses, pause, 3 pulses, longer pause, then a high carrier for about 2 seconds. If you record it, try a slow playback at half speed. I caught something that sounded like C27 and hold. Could be my brain filling blanks. But if you hear similar, send word. You can try the same on 47.42, which used to be a statewide emergency ops channel. Something lives there, but it's shy. I asked earlier when the change really started. For me, it was day 12. The post office here locked its doors without a sign, and the box that always had court papers and county mail sat empty. Then a kid from the county building came by at lunch with a dolly and took the big blue mailbox. No one had ever seen that thing move before. He wouldn't say who told him to do it. Later that night, the highway sign outside town, the one with amber alerts and snow warnings, flipped to a plain black screen and stayed there. No city notices, no weather, just a dead slab above the road, like a blind eye watching traffic. I keep a cracked tablet on the desk that used to show NOAA radar and satellites and all the pretty layers we took for granted. Around day 18, the cloud maps froze. You could see the front that never reached us, stuck out over Lake Erie like a painting nailed to a wall. We joked then, said the weather had taken the week off for the shutdown. But then, the pilots started calling. One from Reading, one from Lancaster. They said the automated weather stations at smaller fields were spitting nonsense, wind from 2 directions at once, pressure off by a full inch, and no NOTAMs updating because the servers weren't syncing. You can fly by feel if you have to, they said, but you can't land by feel in fog, and fog doesn't care about a standoff in the capital. I have a note here from Eddie in York. He works, or worked, for a company that services grid relays. He told me on day 21 he was pulled into a call where a temporary interlock authority overrode local control at 2 substations on the same feeder line. That means a distant hand took the wheel. He said it was labeled as a stability test and that they were told to sit on it. I asked who signs for that during a shutdown. Eddie went quiet for a long time, and then he said, "It looked like a FEMA-style prefix, but the key length wasn't one I've seen." He said the switch sequence did not match the manual, and when he tried to write it up, the ticket closed itself. I told him I didn't know tickets could close themselves. He said, "They do now. We have a call-in line that still limps along when the repeater hasn't overheated. It's patchy, so if I cut out, stay with me. If you get a dial tone but no voice, hang up and try again. The bridge drops audio but leaves the line alive like a ghost. First call tonight is from a man who said we can use his name. I warned him. He said, 'Say it anyway.' His name is Major Daniel Rowe, Army Reserve, out of Wilkes Barre. He said he was activated on day 10, deactivated day 14, then told to stand by day 16 under a non-standard coordination memo he received from a .gov address that didn't resolve when he tried to reply. He drove to his unit on day 20 and found the motor pool open, trucks fueled, radios missing. No officers. A sergeant told him to go home and keep his uniform ready. Yesterday afternoon, he says, an encrypted text told him to report to a civic center in Scranton for community stabilization. He went. The center doors were chained. The parking lot was full of people waiting for water that never came. He walked the perimeter and found a single portable radio lying on a folding chair, dial-taped to a number that matched the burst channel we've been tracking. He said he sat there for an hour with families and elderly folks, and when the sunset hit the ice on the sidewalks, people started to leave, and no one told them where to go. He said he stood there in uniform, feeling like a prop in a movie set after the crew wrapped. He ended the call by saying, "If there's a command, it's not here." Then he thanked me for staying on air. I didn't have anything useful to say back. If you've ever bought groceries with a card and not cash, you know the dance at the reader. Tap. Wait. Receipt spits. You don't think about the pipe beneath it. Banks talking to networks, networks talking to agencies, checks against lists. Last week the list stopped answering. I got a message from a cashier in Sunbury who said the card machine would hang for minutes and then accept everything all at once, as if it remembered the last 10 minutes in a gulp. Then on day 26, it stopped doing even that. Her store let people write names on a clipboard, take one card each, and walk out. They kept the lights low so cars outside wouldn't see and swarm them. Yesterday, the store manager shut the doors for good and told staff to take what they needed. I asked her how it felt to lock it. She said, "Like turning the key on a part of myself." She signed it Lydia and drew a smiley face she apologized for. Lydia, if you're still listening, you don't have to say sorry for holding on to something gentle in the middle of this. The thing people ask me most is what the plan is. I wish I had a plan to give. I've been calling old numbers from my reporting days. Hill staffers, agency folks, the kind of people who can't help telling you things once you promise not to use their names. Two of them reached me back on burner phones. One said, the Office of Management and Budget entered a black box mode around day 7, where they ran models not just for a normal reopening, but for failure across multiple systems at once. Payments, power, ports, and data. He said the models showed an ugly feedback loop. No pay means no workers. No workers means no data. No data means no markets. No markets means no credit. No credit means no oil on trains. No oil means no power. And it all eats itself. He said, we called it the spiral because it looked like one on the screen. I asked who has authority to stop a spiral. He said, you stop it before it starts. Then he hung up. The other call was from a scientist at NOAA who didn't give a name. She said someone told her to shut down a solar monitoring suite after it flagged strange field gradients over the East Coast that didn't match normal patterns. She said it was likely a calibration fault, but she wanted to check. And then her login stopped working. When she called IT, she got a recording that said the office was closed due to the shutdown and that she should contact her supervisor. She said, my supervisor was in the same line. We both listened to the same recorded voice tell us to call each other. She said, that's when she knew the floor had given out. I'm going to read some short messages in a row to get as many voices as I can on air while the generator holds. I'll keep them simple and plain. Name's Rob, Philly. 2 ATMs on Broad Street cracked open, cash still inside, receipts jammed. A guy took $40 and left the rest. Not everyone's bad yet. From Tammy, Hagerstown. Our church kitchen is feeding 40 every night until the canned stuff runs out. We need insulin if anyone has extra. Try 102.9 FM around 6 p.m. We read names of those who made it through the day. From Yusuf, Patterson, New Jersey. The dialysis center is closed. If anyone knows a working unit within 50 miles, text the station's number. I can drive at dawn. From Eliza, Charlottesville. UVA Med is on backup and sending patients away. We took in a mother with a fever. We don't know what we're doing, but we're trying. If you're in those areas and can help, act fast and act with care. Don't promise what you can't give. If you've got medicine that needs cold, use the deepest part of your fridge and open it as little as possible. Ice baths in coolers work in a pinch. Salt will drop the temp, but keep a thermometer inside so you don't guess wrong. A lot of you want to know about fuel. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Most of the stations around Harrisburg are dry or locked. The truck stops off 83 had fuel yesterday at noon, but the pumps were card only and the network was down, so it was as good as none. If you have a siphon, be careful not to breathe fumes. Older cars have easy access caps. Newer ones don't. And if you jam a hose in too far, you'll shred the valve. Law aside, save it for generators and heat, not joyrides. A warm room is worth more than a loop around the block. I promised earlier to say what I think this is. I'm nobody, but I've listened to enough systems talk to hear patterns. The shutdown is the match. The wood was stacked for years. We ran lean to look efficient. We cut the people who knew how the old machines worked. When the match hit, the flames didn't spread evenly. They leapt where the fuel was piled. That's why you have one county humming along on goodwill and another dissolving in a day. It isn't just politics. It's the bones we ignored. I know some of you want a villain with a face. I hear theories, and I'll lay them out how I've gotten them, plain, without dressing. There's the silent continuity theory, that a small, lawful group is running the core functions from bunkers while public offices go dark, because they believe the only way to keep order is to cut noise until they can rebuild. People point to the repeating tones, to guarded water sites, to quiet convoys at night. The argument: a quiet command is better than a loud collapse. There's the shadow authority theory, that a private set of partners took advantage of the shutdown to test control over critical systems, power, payments, permits, so that when government stumbled, they could step in. People point to the ticket that closed itself, to the interlock that overrode local. The argument: control is addictive, and crises are doors. There's the nothing at the wheel theory, the darkest one. No one is driving. It's all leftovers, scripts and scheduled bursts and generators that start themselves twice a day because that's what someone told them to do 5 years ago. People point to the live address with old timestamps. The argument: the image of control is holding shape even while the hands are gone. I don't know which is true. It could be all three, in different places, on different nights. What I know is that people still feed each other in church basements, and that an old man folded $40 back into a broken ATM because he didn't need it all. That's a kind of authority too. I need to put on the wires and check the coil. I said I wouldn't get technical, but the truth is, I need the heat from the chassis on my hands to stay awake. I've been awake too long, and I'm saying that out loud so you know this voice is just a man trying. If I drift, it's not because I don't care. It's because the clock inside a body keeps its own rules after a while. Let's try another patch to the call line. If it drops, don't panic. If you hear an empty hum, count to 20, and I'll be back. Caller: this is Nate, Toledo. You got me? I got you, Nate. You're live. I run maintenance at a water plant by the river. We can purify, but the intake pumps need a power bump to prime, and the city told us the bump is pending authorization. I have my hand on the switch that would do it. I can do it. It's a manual override. But if I do this without the sign-off and something goes wrong, it's on me. We have a day's water in the towers. After that, it's buckets. Nate, listen to me like I'm your neighbor at the fence. What's your worst case with that bump? Cavitation in a pump head, we'd lose 1 unit. We have 4. I've done this once before during a flood drill. We were told after that we needed 3 signatures for it. Do you have your crew? 2 guys. Both said they'll back me, but they've got families on their minds. Nate, I can't give you a legal okay. I can tell you what I would do if my kids were upstairs and my wife had filled the tub and we had neighbors who don't have a tub to fill. I would spin that wheel and take the hit and answer later. But I'm not the one who has to stand in your boots. Yeah. If you do it, call back and tell us it worked so others know it can be done. If you don't, call back and we'll help you plan a boil schedule. Copy. I'll call. Godspeed, Nate. I can feel some of you shaking your heads right now, saying I shouldn't tell a man to break a rule. I didn't. What I did was say out loud what rules are for, not to stop us from caring, but to keep us careful. When the rule stays and the caring stops, the rule is a fence around a field no one tends. I'm trying to talk like a human here because the voice from the screens is gone, and the last thing I want is to become a screen. We've got a text from Marcy in Asheville. She says the Blue Ridge Parkway is blocked by rockfall near the tunnel, and that people are walking around the right edge and slipping. If you're listening in that area, turn around at the first orange cone you see. Even if there's no one there, that cone means a person with a conscience. Put it down to keep you alive. Another message from Omar in Detroit. He says a car lot on Gratiot is letting people charge phones from a battery bank On the curb, from noon to 2, first come first served. He says bring your own cord and don't crowd the gate. If you use that, leave a thank you note taped to the fence. It keeps the person who did it from feeling like a fool. I'm going to say something personal for a minute, not to make this about me, but because I think voices are easier to trust when you can see where they shake. I used to think I was tough. I covered floods and fires and a mine accident once. I stood in the rain taking notes while a man told me how he lost his brother, and I held it together until I got in the car. I always had a newsroom to drive back to. On day 9 of this mess, I drove back to the newsroom and found a note from the owner on the door that said, "Closed until appropriations." The front desk plant was tilted toward the window, like it wanted to leave. I sat on the floor and laughed until I cried, and then I stole the stapler because I needed a stapler here, and I didn't know where else to get one. That's who you're listening to. A man who took a stapler and said sorry to an empty room. I promised real steps for anyone stuck tonight. Here's a short list that's not about hope, just about staying okay until the sun shows up. If you live in a building with a lot of people, pick a floor captain. The captain's job is to take a head count at sunrise and sunset and keep a short list of needs: medicine, heat, water. No one argues with the captain. Rotate the job every 2 days so no one breaks. If you have a courtyard, pick one corner for waste and keep it covered. It's crude, but disease is crueler. If you have older neighbors, knock twice a day. If they don't answer, call through the door, and if they still don't answer, don't be shy about getting a friend and going in. Pride kills in a quiet week faster than a storm. If you're driving in the dark and the traffic lights are out, 4-way stop rules save lives. Count 1, 2 in your head after the car before you goes. No rush is worth a crash with no ambulance to call. If you have a flare, use it to mark a downed line or a flooded dip, but don't stand there like a hero. Drag a branch into the road. A branch is a universal sign that says, slow down, and it works when the flare burns out. If you're worried about food, think in 3s. 3 days in the fridge, 3 weeks in the cupboard, 3 months if you're one of those folks who put up jars every fall. Eat from the fridge first. Freeze bottles of water and move them. A full freezer holds cold better. Don't stress the exact rules tonight. Just put cold where warm wants to sneak in. I keep hearing about media blackouts in pockets. Whole towns where the radio dial is empty except for an automated weather voice stuck on a loop from last week. If you are in one of those towns and you can still hear me, write down this frequency and a backup, 108.7 FM, and if that fails, try 620 AM at the top and bottom of the hour. I don't own 620. No one does. Not tonight. But a ham in Carlisle told me he can punch a carrier there for 5 minutes when his battery allows, and I told him I'd match it with voice if I hear it. I'm going to try to speak to the fear that sits behind all the practical. A mother wrote me from Richmond, Diana, and asked how to talk to her 9-year-old about why the government is closed. I don't have kids, but I have a sister who raises hers with a kind of simple courage that I envy. I told Diana to say, sometimes the big people who are supposed to decide get stuck and forget what the deciding is for. And sometimes the machines they built to help them decide get stuck too. When that happens, neighbors remember things the big people forgot. That can be scary. But it's also a chance to show what you believe without waiting for someone on a screen to tell you. I hear the counter-argument in my own head while I say that. What about planes? What about ports? What about the bond market? What about the code that runs a hospital machine? those are not solved by soup and a smile. I agree with you. What I'm saying is, we keep breathing and keep each other above the water while we look for the rope that hauls the big things back up. An old friend from KDKA in Pittsburgh texted an hour ago. He said the newsroom ran on lanterns for a day, then ran on hope for another, then quit. He saved a server in his trunk and says if he can find a generator and a pipe, he can get local alerts back up. I asked him why he'd do that when no one can pay him. He said, because not doing it feels like stealing. If he gets that running, I'll share the frequency. If he doesn't, I'll say his name anyway when the time's right. Because courage deserves a record. I want to make room for 2 more voices before I check the intake filters. First is Grace in Omaha. She says, my husband is a TSA worker at Epley. He went in the first weeks without pay. He came home on day 19 and said he felt shaky at the scanners, like he was going to cry. So he called out the next day because he didn't want to mess up and hurt someone. Today they told him if he didn't come in, he'd be marked AWOL. He put on his shirt and sat on the edge of the bed for an hour and didn't move. I took his hand and said, we're going to the church pantry, and then we're going to call our neighbor who flies for a cargo company and ask what they're seeing. We did those things. It helped a little. But what should we do tomorrow? Grace, I can't fix a policy that treats your husband like a number in the age of no numbers. I can tell you to print a sign and carry it to the airport exit at noon that says, we see you. If 3 people stand with you, that's 3 more breaths your husband can draw. If no one stands with you, know that the people at the end of this signal do. Second is Luis in El Paso. He says, we're a border town. When the federal checks stopped, we didn't stop being a town. We put cones in the street and ran them like a school pickup line. Everyone gets a bag of rice and a jug of water. We don't ask papers. We don't ask party. We ask how many in your car. Tell people they can do that anywhere. It takes more cones than you think, Luis. I'm telling them right now. It takes more cones than you think. It also takes 2 people with vests and 1 person with a whistle, and 1 person who can say no gently when someone wants 3 bags. If you're listening and you have a church lot or a big store lot, you can copy Luis tomorrow. Let the first cars be the ones with car seats. Put a sign that says 2 items per car and stick to it. I want to say something about martial law because a lot of you keep asking if it's here. The words matter less than the shape of the day. If you see soldiers at intersections, if you hear curfew notices that say stay home, if you watch trucks roll in the night, you might say that word. But I haven't seen a legal proclamation. What I've seen is pockets of order built from the bottom and pockets of control imposed from the top, without the bridge we used to have in the middle. The bridge was boring and full of committee meetings and budget fights and rules about printer paper, and it turns out that boring middle was a load-bearing wall. I'm not saying don't listen to an order when someone with a badge gives it. I'm saying look for the reason behind the order. If the reason is to keep fragile things from breaking, help them. If the reason is to make an empty chart look full, ask a question. Then ask it again if the answer is silence. The phone is lighting up with missed calls as the patch sputters. I'll get to more after I check the coil. Before I go, a short roll call of practicals. If you have a gas water heater with a standing pilot, you might still have hot water. Use it to clean hands, and a pot, and 1 shirt you wear close to your skin. If you have a tankless unit and no power, you're out of luck until you rig a small inverter. Don't try to run the whole house on a car battery. Run one thing well. If you have a battery radio, Turn it off between the top of the hour checks to save power. If you don't have a battery radio, make friends with someone who does and trade a service for 10 minutes of listening. Watch their kids while they boil water, stack wood for their porch, carry a bucket. If you're in snow country and you're tempted to run a grill inside for heat, don't. But you can set bricks in the oven, heat them while a generator runs, and then turn it off and put the bricks in a metal tray in the room you're sleeping in. Cover with a towel, not a blanket that can catch, and they'll leak warmth like a pet that stayed. If you have questions about medicine that a neighbor can't answer, write them down. Write them down because when a nurse wanders by on day 31, she can do more with a list than with your panic. Your panic is valid. It just burns calories you need. I'm going to step back for a minute and listen to the burst channel and breathe. I'll be back in a few. If this cuts, try me again at the top of the hour. If nothing's there, count to 60 and try once more. Some nights the signal makes it on the second go like a shy animal that needs a quiet hand. You're listening to The Beacon, 108.7 FM. This is Michael Trent, still looking at a map full of dim pins and still believing that a dim pin is better than none. Hold fast, I'll be right here. It's past 4:10 a.m. now. If you've made it this far with me, that means the power in your block, or the battery in your radio, or the will in your chest still works. That's more than I can say for most of Pennsylvania tonight. I just stepped outside the broadcast shack a few minutes ago. The air's colder than it should be this late in October. Not biting, not freezing, just unnaturally still. The kind of still that makes sound carry farther than it should. I could hear a dog barking somewhere near the river, echoing through empty blocks. No cars, no wind, just that one sound, like a question asked into a void. There's a smell of damp metal outside. That's how you know the town's gone dark for real. No exhaust, no bakery, no diesel. Just cold air against the husks of things that used to hum. You start to notice details you never did before. The drip of a gutter, the squeak of a sign chain, the faint buzz of a power line that shouldn't have juice, but somehow does. I got Nate's call back. You remember Nate from the Toledo water plant. He said he turned the wheel, the intake pumps primed. The towers filled again, and he heard cheers echoing through the plant. He told me the meters climbed, but the control panel flashed unverified authorization across the screen, and the system started running in a kind of half-manual mode. He said one of his guys, a younger tech, looked at the panel and said, "We're ghosts in the machine now, aren't we?" Nate said he laughed, but it didn't feel funny. He said he'd never been so aware of the fact that the water in the pipes, the water everyone drinks, bathes in, lives by, was now flowing only because 3 tired men ignored the silence from above and turned a wheel on faith. He ended with this: "It's strange, Mike. We used to think control meant following orders. Now it just means keeping people alive." That one hit me hard. I keep thinking about the phrase non-essential. That's what they called everything that shut down first. Non-essential. But the people who pick up garbage, process food, drive trucks, fix lines, all of them were on that list. Turns out non-essential just meant invisible. A listener from Maryland named Cheryl sent a message saying her husband's been a janitor at a federal complex for 22 years. When the shutdown hit, he was told to go home. They said they'd call when it was over. They never called. Yesterday, she went to check on the building. Said the parking lot was empty except for one black SUV idling near the service gate. No plates, tinted windows, and a faint humming sound like an engine that wasn't really running. She swore she saw someone inside wearing a headset. But when she approached, the SUV rolled forward without lights and drove off toward the interstate. She said she's not sure if she's imagining things anymore. I told her none of us are sure anymore. I found something strange tonight when scanning the bands. A pulse on 39.98 megahertz, which used to be an old Federal Disaster Coordination frequency. It was faint, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. But when I slowed the recording down, the pattern was Morse. Short, short, long, then silence, then the letters DECODE. I've tried to confirm it with other operators, but most can't pick it up. One in upstate New York said it faded in just before sunrise and vanished by noon, like a beacon somewhere far off that only wakes at night. Maybe it's just interference, or maybe someone's out there trying to tell us something in the old language, dots and dashes, words too fragile for the new systems that stopped listening. At 4:20, I heard a sound I haven't heard in weeks. A train. Slow, distant, coming from the south. No horns, no announcement, just the low groan of steel dragging over steel. I watched the ridgeline and saw the faint glow of headlamps. 2, maybe 3 locomotives, pulling what looked like freight. No markings, no company logos. Just dark rectangular shapes moving like shadows through the valley. The shutdown killed most freight operations around day 17. But this one wasn't civilian. You can tell by the rhythm. A steady pulse, no stops, no switching. Military or government run, if anything's left of that word. I don't know what they're hauling, but I know where the tracks lead. Straight toward Raven Rock Mountain Complex. You probably know it by its other name. Site R. The underground Pentagon. Built for continuity of government. Supposedly self-sustaining for years. If that train's headed there tonight, it means someone's still using it. And if they're hauling cargo at 4 a.m., it's not groceries. There's a caller on hold. Says he's in Cumberland, Maryland. Let's see if this line still works. You're on the beacon. Go ahead. Caller. Yeah, this is Sean. I don't know how long this'll last. I'm watching what you're describing. The train. It passed 5 minutes ago. No noise except the rumble. No lights in the cabins. I counted 24 cars. Maybe more. Every third one had a small red light near the base. Not on top like normal. There's people standing along the tracks, Mike. Uniforms, maybe? Could be local police, but they're not moving. Just watching it go by. Sean, are you sure they're people? Caller. Yeah, I saw the reflections off helmets. They're real, but they don't wave, don't talk, just stand there. One of them had something glowing on the shoulder. Looked like a patch, but pulsing blue. You said the train's heading west? Caller. West, yeah. Toward the tunnels. I tried to film it, but my phone glitched out. The battery drained like 10% in 1 minute. Sean, thank you. Get inside. Lock your doors. Don't follow it. Line drops. It's not the first time I've heard about strange power drains near those trains. A few nights ago, a listener from Pittsburgh reported that all the LED street lamps flickered white-blue, just as one passed beneath the overpass. He said his neighbor's pacemaker alarmed for no reason. Maybe it's electromagnetic interference from the engines. Maybe it's something else. Either way, something's moving out there that wasn't supposed to move during a shutdown. I think back to the first shutdown I remember. 2013. Back then, people joked about it online. Can't go to the park. Smithsonian's closed. It was an inconvenience, not a collapse. Now, this one feels like the end of a long experiment in trust. You don't realize how fragile that trust is until you watch it snap. The weird part is, people aren't rioting here. Not yet. They're just waiting. Like the country's stuck between panic and paralysis. Maybe that's worse. I got a message from a nurse in Des Moines. Elena says the hospital's running on backup generators, and they've shut down all non-critical wards. She said the head doctor told them to prioritize visible injuries only. You heard that right? Visible. No lab tests, no diagnostics, no x-rays, because there's no data. Elena said she looked at a newborn tonight, premature, barely breathing, and realized there was nothing they could do. They didn't have the equipment, the staff, or the clearance to use what little was left. She said she went to the rooftop for air and saw fires across the city. Tiny ones, like candles. She ended her note with one line. I keep thinking we were trained to save lives, not choose who gets them. Around 4:30, the repeating tone on 163 megahertz changed pitch. That's the first shift in hours. I recorded it, slowed it down again, and this time, it said, C-A-D-M-U-S. Cadmus. That's not a word you hear by accident. In mythology, he was the man who sowed dragon's teeth and grew soldiers. But in the real world, Cadmus was the code name for a federal continuity project buried under DHS about a decade ago, rumored to be the fail-safe plan if the US government ever lost central authority. If that signal's real, if it's coming from where I think it is, someone's trying to bring the system back online without telling the public. Someone's rebooting the country in the dark. I don't know if I should be comforted or terrified, because maybe the lights will come back on, but under whose command? I remember what that insider told me a week ago. There's no such thing as a peaceful restart. You either inherit chaos, or you inherit control. Right now, it feels like both are happening at once. We just got another call. This one from Boston. Go ahead, you're on the air. Caller. Mike, it's crazy here. National Guard rolled into the harbor area an hour ago. They're not talking to anyone, just parked Humvees across the roads. There's a curfew announcement playing on repeat through loudspeakers, but the voice sounds off. Like an AI recording. Keeps skipping the same line. For your safety, remain in designated shelter zones. Thing is, there are no shelters. The city never set them up. What time was this? Caller. Just after 3 a.m., I live above the fish market. I watched them roll in. One of the trucks had the word CIVIL painted over with black spray. Are they interacting with civilians? Caller. Not really. They just stare at anyone who walks too close. Someone threw a bottle and they didn't even react, like they were waiting for an order that never came. Stay inside. Keep lights low. Don't draw attention. Caller. You think they're real guard? I pause. I don't know what to say. I want to tell him yes, but the truth is, I don't know what any of these uniforms mean anymore. The clock says 4:47. I'm running low on fuel. I'll switch to battery soon, so the signal might dip. Before I do, I want to read one last message from Iris in Kansas City. She wrote, I tuned into your station after my son showed me how. I didn't believe half the things I was hearing, until the local AM news stopped at once. I've been leaving my porch light on every night, so my neighbors know I'm still here. Only now, I'm the only house on the block still doing it. Every night I wonder if it makes me a target or a lighthouse. Iris, keep that light on. That's not a target. That's a signal. Somewhere, someone driving through the dark will see that glow and remember what human looks like. The generator's coughing now. When it cuts, I'll switch to the hand crank. If you lose me for a few minutes, don't panic. I'll be back as soon as it stabilizes. If this really is the last government broadcast before something else takes over, then let this frequency stand for one thing: proof that we still speak freely, even in the dark. You're listening to The Beacon 108.7 FM. This is Michael Trent. Still here, still talking, and until someone tells me otherwise, this is still the United States of America.